Yesterday, I received an interesting letter. This is a request from a parent asking me to write to a potential employer for one of my previous patients that he has outgrown his ADHD, that he no longer has ADHD. And this is just demonstrating how pervasive this myth is that people, ADHD is just a thing for during childhood and adults just don't have ADHD. And I politely wrote back to the parents saying that I can't do that because people just don't outgrow ADHD, just as people don't outgrow themselves. ADHD is an intrinsic part of your personality. It's how you're made. The blueprint of your brain doesn't change. You may grow as you mature, it's true. So the symptoms of ADHD may change, but ADHD will always be part of your identity. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Even there's a way to get rid of ADHD somehow. Um, you may not want to do that. This is reminds me of that movie for X-Men. If you have a cure for your mutant genes, would you take it, right? Because ADHD, as I mentioned in other videos, it can be sort of a superpower for you. Now, going back to this common myth, ADHD used to be think as a condition of childhood up until the 80s or so. And now, since then, we realized ADHD symptoms often persist into adulthood. And on average, based on many clinical studies, about half of the children who take medicine for ADHD still take ADHD medicine or stimulants prescriptions as adults. Why is it that adults are less likely to suffer from symptoms of ADHD than children? They're still the same person, they still have the same brain. Actually, take that back. They probably don't have the same brain because your brain matures, different parts of your brain mature at a different rate. And the prefrontal cortex of your brain is the most sophisticated part of your brain, which is responsible for controlling executive functions. This is the part of your brain that's known to be somehow weaker or it takes longer to mature in people with ADHD. It doesn't reach full maturity until in your 20s. So as people grow, their ADHD symptoms will evolve and change. So it may seem that the ADHD symptoms have gone away, but in fact, it's still part of how their brain functions. The hyperactivity symptoms often gets dampened, so that's obvious. In addition, as adults, you often get to pursue your passion because you do have a say. Children don't have a say in whether they want to learn about algebra or grammar. But adults, you get to pursue something you enjoy. So I know a father whose son comes to me for ADHD treatment, and he struggled through school until pretty much end of high school, and he barely finished high school. But then he became a car mechanic, and he is an extremely talented car mechanic. He would, within minutes of looking at your car, figure out what's wrong and fix your car. And when he's working on cars, he is completely attentive. He is hyper focused. That perhaps is his superpower, is the doctor for cars. So I want to just use this opportunity to dispel this very common myth that ADHD is something you outgrow. It is intrinsic, it is part of who you are. The symptoms may change as you grow, but the underlying, especially the inattentive aspect of ADHD, often persists throughout your life. And as I mentioned earlier, medication treatment does not cure the underlying reason for ADHD. It'll shift your symptoms and make things easier to focus, but ultimately it doesn't cure ADHD. nor do we want that to happen. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.